I'll be joining them, but I will share.
September 10th and 11th, it looks like it's going to be at Addie Field. So looks like we're getting some critical mass here. Welcome, Lauren and Dwayne and Michael and G-Day.
Amazing. We are live and we will start. Let's plan to start in the next 2 minutes. We'll give folks just a few more minutes to join. Michael Rubin, how are you? Is your fantasy league still going?
The draft's over. Well, nothing happens until September now, really. So,
yeah, there we go. I think we're about 2 folks away, so we'll give them just a few more minutes. It's good. I'm glad that the draft ended. 13-hour rounds.
It was kind of nutty thing, but it's done, so that's good.
Mr. Scott, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. How about yourself?
Good. Can't complain. Can't complain at all. It's good to hear. All right, Jemana's joining. So we're almost there. We're going to we'll give folks about another 90 seconds and then we'll get started here. So we don't have to repeat ourselves a few times over. Jamel, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks. Yourself?
There you go. Loving the haircut, man. You look sharp. Jemana, thank you for joining us.
Hi, everybody.
Okay. Give folks about 30 more seconds. We'll get things kicked off and we will be on our way. Cedric, hope you've had a good week so far. Graduations are coming to an end.
Another week and they'll be done.
You're a trooper. You are a trooper.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we have our critical mass, and if folks join, they'll join. There we go. Look at that. All right. Kiminori will. All righty, Kiminori. Looks like you got audio. We'll get started now that you're here. We were waiting for you, my friend. Glad that you're here. All righty. So we call this meeting to order. It is 5:34 p.m. and welcome to the June 8th installment of the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force. I am Jevin Hodge, joined here by my Link strategic partners and experience advisory colleagues, Cordell Carter, Michael Aiken, Jamal Holtz, Molly Mitzner. We're excited to be here with you all. And as always, thank you for your service, your time, and your commitment to this process. We are near the finish line here, and the light is shining brighter and brighter. And so we're going to have a productive conversation today. We got a few things on the agenda, and then we'll break into our subcommittee groups. But to get us kicked off, Molly, can you pull up the slideshow? All righty, and you all know the drill. We're here because we're imagining public safety, and we're going to develop recommendations that makes Takoma Park a safer, more livable community for everyone. So our timeline, as I said, the light is very near and is shining brighter by the day. So we're near the finish line here. Our goal is to finish by the first week of July. And so to provide some context around that, in order to do so, we're looking at potentially July 7th as of the date that the City Council will review recommendations that we put forth. And so to work backwards from there, starting today, we're going to work, as I've said in our group several times, to take the fruit and squeeze the juice as much as we possibly can. Your facilitators today will provide a verbal feedback of the items that we've talked about over the last few weeks and present to you some very raw form recommendations for you to react to in your subcommittee groups. We'll use this time to take a deep dive, to digest the information, to massage some of the language. This is your chance to say either, you know, you're hearing what I'm saying, or you haven't heard me clearly yet, and we want to talk about X, Y, and Z.
The political season has been intense.
And I apologize
This
about
summer
that.
we saw
And we
countless
talk about X, Y, and Z. With that being said, that leaves next week, the 15th of June, as the last opportunity for us to bring in subject matter experts. So if there are folks that you want to hear from, folks that you want to talk to, let's be sure that we highlight that today in our engagement. And we're working to get everyone that we've talked about it so far. So the Spanish speaking community, Amharic speaking community, and to have the chief come back and talk about citations and other things. But if there are anyone else that comes up, that comes to mind, we want to have them there because the 15th will be our last opportunity to do so. So we'll take today to work through some of the rough language that you'll hear. We'll use the 15th to react to some of that language so that we can start to put the polishing touches on the recommendations. We have the public listening session on the 24th. And what the city would like to do is they would like to have public recommendations for folks to react to as we have the meeting on the 24th. So we'll use the 22nd to go through everything that we heard from the 15th, react to that. We will turn that around for a public facing document for the 23rd so that we can have at least 24 hours for the initial draft recommendations to be public. We'll take the reactions from the 24th. We will incorporate that into our feedback, and we'll use the 29th to tie the knot. So the 29th would be our opportunity to tie the knot, bring everything together. We'll use that as the opportunity to get our report where it needs to be so that we can be ready to go for the city recommendations on the 7th. Before we go to our next slide, I want to take this as an opportunity to see if anyone has any questions about the timeline and the remaining time that we have here. Okay, so hearing no questions, we're going to use today, squeeze the juice out of the fruits, react to our initial recommendations, use tomorrow to polish what we worked through today. We'll use the 22nd to finalize our potential drafts. We'll use the 24th to react to that, and we'll use the 29th to tie the knot. Sounds great. Molly, next slide. We have our public comment form, and as always, Jamal will drop this link into the chat for you to share with your community members. Please share this with your neighbors, grandmas, friends, and folks that you work with so that folks can provide public comment for the engagement in the task force. We have the public listening session on the 24th of June at 6:30. We've been through this before. We've done this. So please share this far and wide. The city will be doing outreach. We ask that you all do outreach, post on social media, share the bit.ly link. Jamal will drop in the bit.ly link into the chat so you all have that. And we will follow up an email with all of this information so that you have that. And you'll have the PDF and JPEG version of this document to share. All right, I'm going to ask you, Molly, to take down the presentation. And before we jump into our guest speaker tonight, and Kylie, we're grateful for you. I'm going to pass it over to Jamal to talk about the business walk that happened last Friday.
Yeah, thank you, Jevin. As mentioned, we did a business walk on Friday with Kaylee and a few other members of the task force that I'll turn it over to really give the update. But Adam, Kiminori, Cedric, I think I'm missing one more, joined us on and Michael, sorry, joined us on Friday to talk to business owners and engage with those employees and really get some feedback on what their perspective was as it relates to public safety and some potential recommendations and things that they wanted to see in their community as it relates to the business community. And thanks to Kaylee for really connecting task force members with those business owners and workers and kind of leading us through that. So I'm happy to give a high-level overview from our walk perspective, but I'll really turn it over to the task force members that were in attendance to really capture what they heard in that conversation. So we heard a lot around attempted robbery situations before COVID and after COVID. We talked, they spent some time talking about how police interaction became less and less post COVID and during COVID as opposed to before. So really some coordination around possibly doing some police walks similar to what we did Friday, but also having police officers engage with those businesses to see ways that the officers can support those businesses from a public safety perspective. There were some conversations around protection screens, in the businesses. So the city provided some resources and grants to get protection screens, whether if it's during COVID or even post-COVID for safety reasons. There was also lots of conversations on parking enforcement. There was conversations around lighting, how business owners felt that lighting on that strip wasn't so good. So enhanced lighting was a big thing. Communication with the Hispanic community, and really supporting those businesses and building their infrastructure, and really helping making those storefronts look more vibrant. So there was some conversations with some business owners on storefront beautification, so helping them from a city perspective on giving grants and funding to support those businesses in refreshing their storefronts. And then trash was another issue. And then lighting, again, was a common theme. I'll turn it over to the other task force members, though, that were in attendance to kind of help have a conversation with the broader task force on possible recommendations that we heard from that walk. Or if you think I captured it well, thumbs up.
Michael, Cedric, anything to add? Adam?
Oh, I don't know. Real quick, we went to about 5 businesses, me, Michael, Caleb, myself, and I think there's one other. Basically, what we heard from them is similar to what Jamal has spoken to already. How to combat the loitering around some of the buildings, especially after hours and before hours when those owners come to their businesses. The other thing was, other than the drunkenness, sometimes where people have been drinking and they pass out right near their establishments. That was a concern. On one of the establishments, the response time for when law enforcement comes when a particular circumstance, when a particular matter has taken place, regardless of the matter, and then the follow-up response has been slow too. So the response to the actual situation that's taking place, and then a follow-up response, that was concern. The other was post-traffic signs in the driveways or the roadway areas that are in the parking lots. They said they have had many accidents and so forth when people back out, especially on the incline hill of that part of New Hampshire Avenue where some of the store owners are. And Mike, did I get everything, Michael? Okay, that was pretty much it. And Jamal covered most of all the other. Yep.
Adam, I saw you unmute. Were you jumping in there as well? There you go.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to what Jamal said. I think he captured most of it really well. One thing that was interesting to me was the idea that the concerns about parking enforcement and loitering are not necessarily just about, getting people away from the front door for the free flow of pedestrians. It was actually a safety concern with some of the business owners where some of these places have been robbed before, and they felt like, if somebody's just parked right out in front where they're not supposed to be, or they're just kind of coming back and forth to the window, I don't know if they're, casing the place for a robbery or they're going to run in and try to grab something. So I thought that was a perspective that I didn't have about, those types of enforcement being wanted.
Thank you, Adam, for your comments. Thank you, Cedric, for your comments. Anyone else add anything? Michael, did you have anything that you would like to add?
I mean, not really. The only light bulb that went off for me was that maybe some investments in things like lighting, speed bumps in parking lots, other things could ultimately lead to, potentially savings in current law enforcement spending down the road. So we should think about things like that as we're making evaluations of recommendations, because I think that some of these things are relatively low cost. In the dental office, it might be some help with putting up a gate that would close off the back of their property, which is where they're having a lot of the loitering and drunkenness and that kind of thing. And it's a safety issue because they park back there and the people working in the office feel uncomfortable, in those situations. So it's just something to think about. That's all.
And before we turn it over to Kaylee, I would also add, I know part of what we heard on our walk, Adam and Kiminori, was language access as well. So there were some business owners who talked about whether the need, there could be a need for translators or a specialty division that's focused on engaging on business community from from a police department standpoint, engaging certain business owners who are part of certain communities and who may speak a particular language. Language access was another one that we talked about, especially when in a situation with the police officer and English may not be the first language, and it may be hard to communicate back and forth around some of the needs. For example, like when we first engaged a bit, I'll turn it over to Kaylee, but when we first engaged one of the business owners, they were like, yeah, we don't have any problems here. But when we started like digging a bit deeper and like taking the time to ask particular questions, it was a bunch of issues that we kind of talked through. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to Kaylee. Kaylee, to kick us off, you're with the Crossroads, and you coordinate a lot with these business owners, and you set up that walk for us on Friday. And you probably get a lot of feedback on ways that the city can serve these businesses better. Before we fully jump in, can you tell us a bit about your role and kind of what this group needs to know as we work to reimagine public safety and coming up with recommendations? So I'll hand it over to you to kind of kick us off with that.
Sure. Thanks, Jamal. First off, I just really want to send a huge kudos and thank you to the task force here for joining me on that business walk last Friday. It was, it's just the name of the game in the Crossroads. We always have difficulty getting people to online forums or public forums of any nature. So really just hitting the pavement and going door to door is extremely valuable. And on a side note, I found out some marching orders for myself too as part of the CDA from going door to door and from some of our conversations. So just a big thank you. I am the executive director of the Takoma Langley Crossroads Development Authority. In general, the simplest way to describe it is that the city of Takoma Park has created a commercial district management authority that they did that to get some extra investment specifically into the Crossroads retail district. And those resources come from a license fee assessed on all businesses and property owners in the Crossroads. And additionally, the Takoma Langley Crossroads Development Authority is a separate nonprofit business association that is in charge of managing that CDMA and is funded primarily through license fees and a contract with the city of Takoma Park. And our overall objectives are common area maintenance, marketing, promotion, and security for the commercial district. So one of the interesting things, I appreciate you bringing up the point, I believe it was Michael, about the potential for additional resources to private property owners to bring security, appropriately secure their properties. Our activities from the CDA kind of rest in the common areas. So for instance, because our resources aren't enough to extend to managing, nor should they, every private property in the Crossroads commercial district. So there are some gaps. We can maintain, for instance, our litter maintenance contract only goes into the city right of way and the public areas in the commercial district. It doesn't go directly onto private property. And one of the things we found is one of the dentist office that we talked to was having litter issues on their property, which isn't something that would be addressed by the business association's litter maintenance contract. So there really is, it would be a very helpful, useful incentive item for property owners if there was some kind of support system from the city to really help make these upgrades. And what the clearest way I can put it for why the city should be concerned with investing in the security of the crossroads and the private properties is that we have actually been a target that specific criminal groups of what's it called? People who rob your store, panhandlers, and people who will go in and steal from the store. We're actually they'll come in vans and target the crossroads over a period of time. Now that kind of slowed down during COVID, which is a good thing, but it hasn't, as we found on our walk, it hasn't completely gone away. It's still an issue. So what does that tell you when people are specifically coming to the crossroads for that kind of activity? That means there's definitely some room for improvement. So I am really glad that we have this Reimagining Public Safety initiative going on. And that was one of the items that that's probably one of the largest recommendations that I think the Business Association would support on our end. Another thing I would note is that if you want this initiative to successfully support and address and improve safety in the crossroads, you have to realize that it's right on the county line and find a way to overcome this cross-county jurisdictional challenges that we face. Find some sort of way for the city of Takoma Park and Prince George's County right across University Boulevard to have some form and model of working together instead of sending one to the other side of the street or sending another to the other side of the street. Because for our purposes in the crossroads, we're a commercial district whose customers are all in Prince George's County. So if things aren't going well on either side of the line, you're not going to fully get what you want as far as reimagining public safety. So I just think that's an important note that I would challenge this team with diving into a little bit. And lastly, it really stood out your note about language access. Language access is, and the ability to connect with a certain culture and demographic is critically important in developing that trust and engagement with different groups in the crossroads. So I'd be curious, I don't know the actual number of how many cops we have in the city of Takoma Park that are actually Spanish speaking. Could have changed, I don't know the number, but last I heard, I thought it was just one or two. And that's just not going to cut it. That's really not going to cut it, especially to address issues with with loitering and various kinds of issues that we're having. It's critical to be able to have that access and communication on our police force. And then the other thing that came up during our walk, and one of the big challenges we have, that I have never seen be fully addressed, is we have a real substance abuse problem. A lot of alcohol abuse and other substances. And, I was telling Carol that, I may not be aware, I am not an expert on all the public health comings and goings of Montgomery County and Prince George's County by any means, but I am really not aware of any specific interventions in our area. And if I'm not at least aware of it, that probably means there's a little bit of a gap there in the services for those particular substance abuse and mental health issues that really need to be addressed. I do know, I did do my digging to see what Montgomery County was doing as far as street level outreach to people who are in distress that you see on the side of the roads. What's the street level outreach that Montgomery County Department of Health is performing in the crossroads? Because I want to look at the crossroads, right now. And what I learned, and this I think might be helpful information for this task force, is that It is basically all their street level outreach is contracted to an organization called Bethesda Cares. And Bethesda Cares is able to get an outreach worker to the area about once or twice a month, I believe. One outreach worker once or twice a month. That's the extent of what I know is of who's approaching, the people struggling, people in distress on the street. Once or twice a month, one outreach worker, social worker from Bethesda Care. So there's a need, and I think room for additional resources there. What form that takes, I am not entirely sure. If it's something working with Bethesda Cares and finding resources for additional street level outreach workers in the crossroads, I personally would be all for that. But that's kind of a wide angle view of kind of how public safety has been, what challenges we're facing, and how it's been working in the crossroads. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Kylie, for
Was that too
the comprehensive overview, and all the work that you're doing in our communities is deeply appreciated. So task force, this is your opportunity. I implore you to ask any questions that you may have at this point in time, and let's take a deep dive into information gathering. Michael, you're up.
Gotta unmute. Okay. Kaylee, thanks for being here. Just a quick question. So you did mention the need for coordination on the policing side between like PG and Takoma Park. I'm wondering what kind of coordination happens among the business side, like in terms of businesses on the PG side. Is there an association that you interact with? And is there any organized effort to like get all the businesses who have an equal interest in that area becoming more safe and secure together? And just
Michael, it's always been, we're much more organized on the Takoma Park side. Unfortunately, originally in the 80s, the CDA was meant to be cross-county, which would be great, but that didn't end up happening. So there's always been more resources on the Takoma Park side, and my jurisdiction ends at the border, at the Takoma Park side. Recently, they have, there's some initiative, some energy going on in the Langley Park side. There is a new nonprofit community organization, a CDC called the Northern Gateway. And they are kind of, their objectives are a little broader than just focusing on small business development and economic revitalization. They have a little bit of a broader mission, and they're much younger. They started about 2 or 3 years ago, but they share some common goals and interest as we do. Now, I will say the CDA is, we are starting. Part of our challenge is we're a C6, so we don't really have access to a lot of grant dollars to do some of the kinds of things that might potentially help bring security resources into the crossroads. But we are starting a foundation this year. We're in the process of establishing it and applying to the IRS for 501c3 status, and the foundation will be cross-county. So that has some possibilities too.
Thank you. Michael, does that answer your question? Okay, wonderful. Task force members, any other questions?
I would love to know how it went with the other team on Friday. Were businesses in? I hope. My intention was to be able to go with everyone everywhere, but we kind of just sent one team on their own. So it sounds like it went well. Was that, I think, Adam, you were on the other team, and
Yeah, we missed the bakery owner.
oh yeah, he sent his apologies to everyone, and he'll be sending some updates. I told him he could share with the
Yeah,
task force.
the jewelry store owner was not there, but we talked to her employees and they gave us a lot of really helpful insights. I did have another question, if I could segue into that. I was curious what what kind of collaboration between businesses, if any, there is on video cameras and figuring out what kind of systems people will have in place and how they'll share it with the police if necessary, and what the what the picture is, no pun intended, the exterior cameras, when there's a large strip of buildings. How is that all working?
So external security cameras are a problem, and there's a lack of that in the crossroads. That is a challenge that has to be, businesses have their own array of individual cameras in their store to various degrees, various levels. It hasn't been a coordinated implementation across the businesses. However, what we were trying to address is the external security camera situation. And that's a project we need to collaborate with the property owners on that. The CDA did develop a rebate where we still have in the pot about $10,000 in rebate funds that property owners can apply for this rebate to the CDA with what exactly they want to do and get a rebate for their cameras. However, it's been a little bit, it's just been a little bit like pulling teeth with that. We have challenges in that we don't have a bunch of little individual small properties. We're dealing with large property owners like JBG, that it might take a while to get people on board. However, relationships with JBG at least are very, very much improving. Some of their management has changed. The city, things have also changed in regards that the city recently got an economic development manager about 2 years ago who has applied for state funds to get facade improvement funds. So now the city is really working with these property owners with here's what we can do for you too, which is a much better way to have those conversations than here's what you need to do for us. So that's kind of the name of the game and what we're working on.
Thank you, Kylie.
Yeah.
Adam, does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. If I can just add a comment, I say I have a fair bit of professional experience with video systems, and I feel like they vary widely in terms of quality, and that the retention periods differ, and the ability of someone to actually identify like a robber or a shoplifter can be one extreme or the other, from just some blurry guy to anybody that knows the person would recognize them. So there might be some room for improvement there, with maybe the police department being involved in making recommendations about what systems they should have and how they should be set up, so that they can address some of the problems like these flash mob shoplifters that you were talking about.
I so hear you, Adam. What I ran into was a lot of, oh my gosh, we cannot have that liability. That was the huge challenge. It was a liability challenge that thus far the city did not want, nor really did the CDA want necessarily. So the way that we kind of resolved all this is it's the property owners that have to buy the equipment. We did provide the property owners through this program with some recommendations. However, our recommendations for security cameras are definitely, it sounds like you'd be a good input person on some of those recommendations. They're not that developed or stringent as of yet. But as far as cameras in Takoma Park particularly, it's the knee-jerk reaction is a little bit of, we don't like or do that, which is not necessarily a sustainable thought process.
Thank you for their input there, Kylie. Adam, do you have any follow-up there?
No, there are other hands up. I'll I'll let others go.
I appreciate you. Kiminori, you were up next.
Okay, quick question. So, what's your sort of assessment of like how much economic sort of damage as a result of COVID in that area, those businesses? And is there a sort of way to receive that America Rescue Plan Act money that I guess the city is receiving to support those businesses and sort of further economic development, I guess?
Yeah. So the metric we're able to look at, for a commercial district, one of the metrics you want to look at is how much vacancy you have in the area. And though we did lose a number of businesses throughout COVID, the market remains very, very strong in the crossroads, and a lot of those properties were picked right back up by new businesses coming into the area. So we actually, though, by no means am I minimizing the struggle that it's been for all of us and for the crossroads and for our business owners, and it still remains a struggle. We actually have no net loss in vacancy in the crossroads. That being said, we need to remain vigilant with all this because I don't think we've seen the end of this fallout. I am worried, these support funds that businesses had access to are only going to last so long. There are certain business owners who have taken out, private funding and things like that. So, well, I'm still saying we'll see. I would like to see, fall and winter, and I know a lot of the property owners are starting to really collect on their debt, collect on past due obligations from our business owners. Now, you mentioned the American Rescue Act. That is definitely, funds are definitely coming to the city of Takoma Park. The business associations are involved in a weekly meeting with the economic development manager at the city of Takoma Park. So we're kept updated on this. We don't fully know how those funds are going to be distributed in Takoma Park. We have given lots of recommendations to Samira, but I guess there's a separate task force in the city talking about that. And there's a priority list being built amongst staff in the city. So that's one of the things we have talked about, though, are definitely, we've talked about security systems and security cameras. And that's possibly something that could be incorporated into those funds. So that's what I know about that as of now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kylie. Kiminori, anything to add to that?
Oh, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Jemima, you are up.
Hi, thanks. So I guess I'm just trying to understand what you were saying about the camera issue.
Mhm.
Was it a resistance to what the resistance was when you were saying it was a liability issue, and I don't understand which part of it is a liability issue or what the resistance is, because then there was sort of we don't do that in Takoma Park kind of reference. So I want to get a full understanding and make sure I understand what you're saying when it comes to the question of cameras, because it also sounds like you're advocating for some of the money to be used to purchase cameras. Yeah.
So I think the concerns at first was, are the cameras an invasion of privacy? If the city is buying cameras and something happens in an area where there's cameras and the camera doesn't work, is the city held liable for something that happens to someone? Now, there was a lot of questions. I'm not saying I don't know the legal answer to all that. There were just a lot of questions coming up. And then in the crossroads, there was also a lot of questions, and in Takoma Park about, we're concerned with Takoma Park in the Crossroads area does have a lot of undocumented immigrants. Is that a concern? Is there any civil liberty concerns, or will these ever be used? I have some people on my board that are immigration lawyers, and will it be used by ICE, and will they be able to potentially, collect the camera footage? And but then Takoma Park is a sanctuary city, so no, we wouldn't do that. But these are all just questions that were raised that the actual answer took a while to, hadn't necessarily been found. These were just all the concern items that were raised, if that makes sense.
And so if part of the advocacy is to get Takoma Park to buy cameras in the context of all this, wouldn't some or all that have to be resolved, and what is the process for that?
I don't necessarily think I was saying that that the recommendation would be that Takoma Park buy cameras. I think what I'm telling you is, if you're looking at that recommendation, that would probably have to be a subsidy to the property owners. The CDA, we only have a little bit of funding right now for that. But it could go further. And the subsidy could potentially support property owners and other security initiatives beyond a camera. For instance, the dentist office that needed fencing for their parking lot, and they had unique security concerns there. So I think that would be more, I think a subsidy. And I heard some talk about subsidies. I think that would be a positive direction to go in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kaylee. Jemima, anything to add there?
Nope.
Wonderful. Well, task force members, do we have any last questions before we depart here? Seeing and hearing none, thank you all. Kaylee, do you have anything that you would like to leave us with? Any parting words?
Just thank you for all your work and focus on this issue, and thank you also for addressing the business community too. We appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing some of these drafts of the recommendations and continuing to talk with you and the team.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time and your commitment to the work that you're doing, and your time in joining us today. As a point of personal privilege, I'd like to acknowledge that Councilwoman Searcy has joined us. Councilwoman, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your time and service. With that, ladies and gentlemen, this is the conclusion of our public meeting. Thank you all to the viewers who are joining in with us today. Molly Mitzner or Jamal will drop in the link that will take us to our subcommittees, and we will head into our subcommittees and break out there. Thank you all, and we look forward to having a robust discussion. See you all in just a moment.
Hey, Molly, can you get me there? Last 2 times it's dropped me out. So can you just get me into my subcommittee? I can't.
Unfortunately, it is a separate Zoom link. So you got to click that link in the chat room and it should take you into there. And then Jamal should be able to, but we'll stay here. You see it if you hit the chat there.
I hit the chat. Yeah, I see it.
You see that link at the Zoom?
Yes, I just
clicked it and it may say leave and head on over.
Okay.
And we'll stop this recording.